Okay, so I'm very happy to welcome you all to this AJL Presents event. The title is Stronger Together, Combating Anti-Semitism Through Positive Jewish Role Models in KidLit, and which is unfortunately timely, but when is it not timely? So we have with us some wonderful presenters. I'm going to let them introduce themselves generally, but let me just tell you that Hannah Steifel, Lisa Weimer, and Nancy Chernin are our presenters tonight. I'm actually going to spotlight them so that you will be looking at the right people during this event. Okay, so you should all, oops, hold on. I'm trying to add spotlight, not replace spotlight. Oops, okay. Not, okay, hold on. Here's Nancy. Here's Hannah. And here's Lisa. Now we are set. Okay. So I see Vivian saying hi in the chat. Everybody is welcome to say hello in the chat and say who you are and if you want to say anything about why you're here. As we go along, if you have a question, you could put it in the chat. We'll do Q&A at the end. So I think we mostly will want to just let these guys talk and then, save the questions for later, right? Does that make sense? So let's go ahead and get started and take it away, team.
Hey, thank you so much, Heidi. It's really an honor to be here. I'm going to share my screen. Give me a moment. Sorry. Too many things going on here. Sorry, I have to change the. You can see all my work. Okay. One sec. Okay, so welcome everyone, and thank you so much to the AJL for hosting this event. Stronger Together, combating anti-Semitism through positive Jewish role models in KidLit. I want to note that today is the 4th anniversary of the shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. And I think we can honor the victims by being here together and continuing to speak out against anti-Semitism, and also by sharing beautiful Jewish books with all children. Okay, so just by quick introduction, I want to tell you all that Heidi will be sharing a list of resources, our bios, all the books that we're sharing here. There's a tremendous amount of work went into that. I hope that you all look at it, but you can look at our full bios either on our websites or on the AJL site. And so just by quick introduction, I'm Hannah Steifel. One of my recent books this month is The Tower of Life, How Yafa Eliach Rebuilt Her Town in Stories and Photographs. Nancy Chernin is the award-winning author of many books for children, including one of my favorites, Dear Mr. Dickens. And Lisa Weimer is also an acclaimed author and the award-winning author of The Assignment, which you'll be hearing about. So we're very excited to be presenting to you this evening.
So what is anti-Semitism? From the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, this is been embraced by organizations and countries across the globe as a definition. This is only a small portion of the definition. Anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, toward Jewish community, institutions, and religious facilities. And one of the things that we are providing for you is an extensive list of stereotypes and anti-Semitic tropes, because what I found in my travels across the globe, throughout the United States, especially in non-Jewish communities, is that people really do not know those stereotypes and tropes. So that is provided for you on our handout.
Okay, by the numbers. So I think many people in the audience know that Jews are a minority. Maybe not everyone knows that, but it's important to emphasize it, that Jews make up only 2.4% of the US adult population and less than 2% of the world population, a total of about 15.2 million Jews worldwide. Yet Jews are the victims of nearly 60% of religious hate crimes, which is a shocking statistic. In addition, in 2021, the ADL data showed that they reported 2,717 incidents of anti-Semitism in America, the highest number on record since they've been collecting data. And you can see this, these shocking numbers. And even if you've seen this before, you know that we cannot become complacent about seeing these numbers. Each number is an individual, a human being, a Jew who was attacked in some way. And in addition, so many more have not been reported, things that happen online every single day in chats and games, online video games and so on. So it's really important that we all speak out together and be vigilant.
So I'm certain that all of you are aware of what happened the other day with Ye, formerly known as Kanye West. He made some anti-Semitic comments and it went viral. He said that he was going to go DEFCON 3 on Jewish people, and then proceeded to go online and say that he could say any kind of anti-Semitic blank, and Adidas would do nothing. And this prompted additional anti-Semitic actions. And so you can see that this is so important. This was, as we, the three of us discussed, this was really the first time that we saw such an incredible outcry in the non-Jewish community. But if you look online, and what I said in a BBC interview just 2 days ago, was that I really hoped that this would not be a one and done situation. And that's why bringing Jewish books and making sure that it is a part of the mainstream is so important to combat anti-Semitism. And perhaps through Ye, it was their first exposure to some, anti-Semitic rhetoric, and they didn't even understand it. And of course, the horror that we see in the photo below.
So what role can KidLit play? We're talking about an enormous problem that's been going on for thousands of years, as long as there have been Jewish people. So what can KidLit do? Why is it important? It is important because books can be mirrors, which means books can allow our Jewish children to see themselves in a positive way. They can be windows so that children who are not Jewish can see Jewish people, other Jewish children in an honest way, not in a stereotypical way, but in a positive and a true way, and sliding glass doors so that they can walk beside their Jewish friends and become allies. And that statement is credited to Dr. Rudine Sims Bishop.
So we know that, our Jewish community is diverse, and it's so important that we include and share that diversity in our books, and that there's intersectionality and a wide spectrum of experiences. And what I've been saying to people is that we are all observant Jews. We all observe our Judaism in our way. And there is no yardstick to measure a person's Judaism. And we are all Jews. So when there is a book and it depicts, children with yarmulkes, that's not a book for Orthodox, children. That's a book for all children. And so we really just want to express that we need all these books with positive role models. And that was why we felt it was so important to share those stereotypes, because, there are books out there and we may not even realize that a book is promoting a Jewish stereotype, and that can be so harmful. So that's why we're providing that information for you.
Stronger Together: How we can combat anti-Semitism through positive Jewish role models in board books. So I want to take a moment here to talk about board books, which I see as being small but mighty. And they're also small in the sense, earlier, Hannah was talking about what a small percentage the Jewish people are of the American population and of the US population. Well, board books are also a very tiny percentage of books in general, and Jewish board books, as I found out when I tried to put together a Jewish board book group for 2023, I found very few Jewish board books coming out. And they are so important for our kids to have. When we think about it, how do kids even learn to speak? They hear a lot of babbling noises, and eventually they figure out that these noises are words, and they start to talk. But if you never talk to them, they wouldn't figure that out. They wouldn't put the pieces together. We share these board books with our kids from 0 to 3 before maybe they understand a lot of the concepts we're reading to them. But they are absorbed. They see these pictures. They see these simple stories. They see this joy. They see a Passover plate. They see a mezuzah on a door. They see a challah. All of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but slowly, these images become familiar. They become comforting. They become full of joy, both for our Jewish children and for children who are not Jewish, who are going to be comfortable and find these also familiar and lovely images. Here's an image here of challah, which is coming out next year by Varda Livni, who both wrote it and illustrated it. Jewish board books can mirror the rich range of Jewish experience for both Jewish and non-Jewish children. Jewish board books can send a message. Dr. Shoshana Silverman, who wrote My Family Haggadah, coming out next year from Carben, she writes, board books may seem simple, but if written well, they can convey so much. Reading board books with Jewish words or themes let children intuit that this is an important part of your family life. So again, it instills Jewish pride, familiarity for our Jewish children, but also for non-Jewish children. A Haggadah doesn't become some strange book. Oh, it's the Haggadah. Oh, that's where you tell the story of Passover. And it becomes a comfortable, familiar, and a lovely thing to know about. We can have images that bring us joy from a very young age. Vivian Kirkfield, who's Pippa's Passover Plate, the popular picture book, which is going to be a board book next year. She writes that books are windows that introduce the world to children and mirrors that help build self-image. Recent brain research indicates that birth to age 3 are the most important years in a child's development. Ann Kofsky, who is sort of single-handedly, I think she's got 5 board books coming out next year. She's trying to sort of fill them up for all of us, give us a selection. She writes, the idea behind each of these is to introduce a Jewish object in a kid-friendly and accessible way. So look at that picture of my mezuzah. and how beautiful and attractive that mezuzah on a door is. Now, again, that may not be a concept that a toddler is going to fully understand. We don't expect them to fully understand it, but it's going to become familiar because they're going to see what joy it brings to this delightful main character, this cute little bunny. And with Vivian's Pippa's Passover plate, we see this charming mouse that the children will love, already love, looking for the Passover plate, and her animal friends helping her find it. Lisa was talking about how the Jewish story, the true Jewish story, is about diversity. There's so much diversity within our community. And we avoid the stereotypes and the tropes by showing that diversity. Sarah Arowesti has been a champion for showing, not even telling, but showing Sephardic culture through her board books. She says Sephardic culture is part of Jewish culture, not apart from it. Her goal is to normalize Jewish diversity right at the start. That's what her board books like Mazel Bueno do. And Sephardic and Ladino language learning can have religious themes. I mean, all Jewish board books can have religious themes, as in when Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, but also Sephardic and Ladino language learning with secular themes. We want to see Jewish life, both religious Jewish life, but also secular Jewish life. And we want to see that in all our books. We want to model that for our children. Because as Lisa said, we're not judging how Jewish we are by our level of observance. If we identify as Jewish, we are Jewish. And again, representation matters. To return to Varda Livni, who wrote Challah, which is coming out next year. She says, I am a white mom of Black kids. It is crucial to me, for my kids and all kids, to be seen and to see others as a natural part of the Jewish landscape. And that needs to be instilled from babyhood. That's why when Varda makes a book, she will always have kids of color in it. Of course, she says, unless it's a book with bunnies, and then they might be blue, green, or pink, as these charming bunnies are. So to get back to mirrors and windows and how important they are, I wrote Counting on Shabbat, which is my first board book, because I want Jewish children to see themselves and to feel proud. That is the mirror. I want non-Jewish children to see Jewish children and appreciate the beauty of our traditions. That's the window. Counting on Shabbat offers a simple counting, rhyming stories that models chesed, kindness, and diversity. You can see a diverse family there. So grateful to the illustrator Petronella Dostalova, did a beautiful job with that. And you can see that through the lens of Shabbat, as a young family brings joy to an elderly person who might otherwise be alone on Shabbat, a time when we should all be coming together and supporting each other.
Beautiful, Nancy. I can't wait to buy these for baby gifts for my friends and family. They're so
Oh,
beautiful.
and thank you for pointing that out, Hannah, because I was saying that there are so few of them. And that is a way that we can all, in our ways, fight anti-Semitism by getting these books in the hands of children. Sometimes these get overlooked. People don't realize the importance of Jewish board books in the mix. There are so few of them, just as there are so few of us. And whatever we can do to put them into the hands of others as gifts in our libraries, in our story times, it really can make a difference for both Jewish and non-Jewish children. Thank you for pointing that out.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, so picture books. So last year I heard Abe Foxman, who was the former head of the ADL for 40 years. He spoke at my shul on the topic of anti-Semitism. And one of the things he said that we can do to combat anti-Semitism, as Nancy said, is to raise proud Jewish children. And how do we do that? He also pointed out that on college campuses today, kids are feeling so threatened. There was a statistic from the ADL that 1 in 3 college students have experienced anti-Semitism on campus, and many of them are hiding their Jewish identity. Except he said he went to visit his granddaughter at Brandeis, and he called Brandeis a Machaya, because which is like a breath of fresh air, because kids are walking around with their yarmulkes and their tzitzis hanging out and so on. And they were outwardly Jewish. I also want to share a bit of my own nachas, that my daughter and her friends my daughter's at Brandeis also, they were on the CBS News in Boston yesterday speaking about this topic, and they were so eloquent and they were very proud. So how do we raise proud Jewish children? Through picture books. So I'm excited to share that there are 2 books coming out about Debbie Freeman. One by Deborah Lackeritz, which is coming out next month in December. Sorry, it's not next month yet, in December. And the Debbie Song by Ellen Leventhal. And I feel like kids, kids all have different interests. And when they see someone that they admire or learn from in a picture book, something that they can relate to, it really lifts them up. And many kids are influenced by music, and Jewish music is so influential. And we have so much liturgy and folk music, and Debbie Freeman was a true leader, and she found her way home in Judaism through her music. And both of these books are just so beautiful, and I'm excited to share them here. Also, so many kids relate to sports. I love this new book, Rena Glickman, Queen of Judo by Ivne Del Cadorevas. So she was someone I never heard of before. I took judo as a kid. I was telling the others, until my tooth got knocked out. But this woman went all the way. She grew up in a tough neighborhood. She was Jewish. She actually joined a gang, but then she channeled all her strength into judo, and she won, she was like the highest level black belt. She led the women's Olympic team eventually. She made it into the International Women's Sports Hall of Fame and the International Jewish Sports Hall of Fame. And she was an example of strength, determination, and leadership. So I think that's a wonderful book to show kids. Of course, science and medicine. So we have vaccines on our mind lately. And these are both beautiful examples of putting Judaism forward and in the forefront of a picture book. So in Dean Robbins' book, Thank You, Dr. Salk, he says, Jonas Salk could not run fast or leap high, but Jonas knew a different way to be brave. It came from his Jewish religion. He dreamed of Tikkun Olam, healing the world. So there he has the words Tikkun Olam, healing the world, just forward in a book that, just beautiful. And in The Polio Pioneer by Linda Elovitz Marshall, she wrote, Jonas Salk was a kid who saw things differently, a kid who wanted to help make the world a better place. Ever meet a kid like that? Could that kid be you? And I love how she asks the kids so directly to think about what they can offer the world and, aspire to be. This is another beautiful book about a woman in science, an unsung hero, Rosalind Franklin. Rosalind, look closer, an unsung hero of molecular science by Lisa Garin. She was a strong Jewish female pioneer. When she was 9, Lisa writes, her parents sent her away to boarding school. She was the only Jewish girl there. Where other girls attended church, Rosalind studied Hebrew with a private teacher. And I think that's something that many kids can relate to. They might be in schools where they're one of very few Jewish students. And they can see through Rosalind's example, they can accomplish amazing things. She was one of the first to discover the structure of DNA, and she also studied, and she was not recognized for it. But she also studied RNA and viruses, are things that are so applicable to science today, and curing and putting a stop to certain diseases, and also help make vaccines. Okay, so also there are books of fiction and books about Jewish holidays, and I want to share, these are from Kalani Oat. The first one, The Very Best Sukkah, a story from Uganda. I learned so much from this book. I think it's so important for kids to see other aspects of Jewish culture that they might not know about. This one is about a sukkah competition in Uganda, and a storm comes and blows down the sukkah, and the whole community comes together. So it's about helping our neighbors, uniting as a community, the holiday of Sukkot. And it's just beautifully written and illustrated by Shoshana Nabi, who is becoming a rabbi, and illustrated by Moran Yogev. And the other one is my book that came out this week, Mendel's Hanukkah Mess Up. And I'm hoping that just through Hanukkah joy and the themes of believing in each other, sharing your own light and the light of Hanukkah, and also a common theme that we all mess up sometimes, but sometimes mess ups can be miraculous. And then also social emotional learning and taking action. So as I mentioned, Dear Mr. Dickens is one of my favorite books. I've learned so much from it. It's about a woman named Liza Davis who saw that in Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens, that he wrote a very anti-Semitic character, and not anti, he wrote a Jewish character in a negative way, Fagin, and he called him the Jew. And Liza Davis was offended and thought it could cause harm. And so she decided to take it upon herself to write to him. She was a big fan of Charles Dickens. And at first he ignored her, but she was very persistent and she caused change. And this encourages kids everywhere to speak up. And, all you need is a pen and paper or a computer or whatever you have, at your disposal. And I actually took this to heart, this message, and wrote to a New York Times bestselling author recently because I felt like one of his characters was stereotypical and not necessary. And I wrote him a long letter and he wrote back. So adults can learn from this too. And this is my other book that came out this month, October 4th, from Scholastic, The Tower of Life, How Yaffa Eliach Rebuilt Her Town in Stories and Photographs, beautifully illustrated by Susan Gall. It's a Junior Library Guild Gold Standard selection. The reason I'm showing you this here, it's a Holocaust book, but really the story of Yaffa Eliach as a role model. Yaffa was born in the shtetl of Aishashak, and her grandmother was the town photographer. And when the Nazis came, she had to flee with her family. Most of the town, 3,500 Jews, were murdered. But Yaffa, who was just a young 6-year-old girl, tucked photos into her shoes. And many, many years later, in 1979, she had become a Jewish historian and expert on the Holocaust. And Jimmy Carter reached out to her because he was building a memorial to the Jews of the Holocaust and the victims of the Holocaust. And he asked Yaffa to help. And she knew she didn't want to focus on death and dying. She remembered her beautiful town. She wanted to focus on the lives that were lived. So she wanted to restore humanity to the victims of the Holocaust. And she remembered the photos she had tucked in her shoes. She decided people had sent photos to their relatives all around the world. So she traveled the world for 17 years, collecting photos of every man, woman, and child who had lived in the town. And she built the Tower of Faces, or the Tower of Life, in the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum. And Yaffa wanted people who look at the photos to see themselves in the photos and recognize our shared humanity. So I think that the lesson of empathy, of seeing the victims of the Holocaust, the victims of hate, and where that can lead, is so important. And I feel that that is one way of combating anti-Semitism. Also comparing our communities to Aishashak, which I will be doing when I come to Lisa's hometown in Milwaukee in November. We're going to be talking about community and how we can build, how our communities are important and what we offer each other. This is a book I've just finished now, and I love it. It's called Honey and Me by Meira Drazen. And one thing I love about it is that it has positive Orthodox representation. It's accurate, it's non-stereotypical. It's a friendship story, and it also goes into family relationships and bat mitzvah angst, which for many kids and bar mitzvah kids who are of that age experience. But what's really lovely is that the Orthodox representation is spot on, and it's well done, and it is not negative, it's positive. And I think that's so important today. This is a middle grade called Nice Jewish Girls. I love the quote, and they're short bios of amazing Jewish women, activists, entertainers, writers, artists, scientists, entrepreneurs, leaders, and justices. I think there are 36 of them, a nice Jewish number. They're multicultural, they're multi-ethnic, and they get rid of stereotypes. I have the book here, and one of the things I love, first of all, there were many women I hadn't heard of, although the first one is Henrietta Zold, who was another topic of Nancy's. And in the back here, the author played Jewish geography, and if you could see the lines between the characters, she shows, just like we could do after this talk, we're all connected, and I love that idea about being Jewish and how we always play that game. And also the wow factor, that when kids read this, they'll say, wow, that actress, that business person, that photographer, that justice, They're Jewish too. I never knew that. So again, it's windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors. Okay, Lisa, take us away.
Okay, so I am so pleased to be able to share the book of Elsie, but I just also want to acknowledge everyone that is with us right now. And for those of you who are going to be listening, one of the things that Elie Wiesel said was, whoever listens to our stories becomes a witness to our story. And so together, when we're sharing these stories and they mean something to us, you know, to share them with other people is so important. And with the book of Elsie, this is, it's by Joanne Levy, and I love this book for a number of reasons. First of all, it's a beautiful introduction for middle school students to the holiday of Purim. And it addresses anti-Semitism. And this young girl makes the decision, the main character, Elsie, she makes the decision that she is going to save her synagogue when they're going to cancel the Purim party because of financial troubles. And she is determined. Talk about like having spirit. And her best friend is a person of color, and they share each other's experience, and they talk about the pain of being stereotyped and experiencing hatred. And horrible things happen at Elsie's synagogue. And the event almost gets canceled. And you got to read this book to find out what Elsie does and how the community comes together. So this is a beautiful book to share, as to have role models. And it also includes diverse characters. Elsie has 2 dads. And so to show, you know, a diverse Jewish family is beautiful. So another book that I want to recommend that's actually coming out on November 1st, and I'm so proud to have written a blurb. It's by Sarah Dar Littman, Some Kind of Hate, and it's coming out by Scholastic. And I have to tell you, one of the things that I so deeply admire about what Sarah did in writing this book is she really wanted to get the Jewish representation right. And she took on an extremely difficult topic on white supremacy, how a child can be brainwashed and indoctrinated, and how that can lead to doing some horrible things like vandalism and hate crimes, and what those online influences can be. And in this book, you know, there is a young man that gets wrapped up in some really bad stuff. And so without a doubt, this book is a window into that world, provides a mirror into Jewish life. And I want to share with you a quote from Sarah. She said that this book fights anti-Semitism by introducing readers to some of the coded dog whistles being used to mainstream age-old anti-Semitic conspiracy theories online and indoctrinate young people into an extremism, while showing the hurtful impact this has on Jewish teenagers and their families. So powerful. Next slide. So this might be a book that you are not familiar with. And oftentimes when we talk about anti-Semitism, we, you know, connect that to the Holocaust. But as we know, this has been going on for thousands and thousands of years. This is a short book ripped away by Shirley Riva Vernick. And there's some, time travel and magic realism. We have some characters, set in today, and they go back in time to England during the time of Jack the Ripper, and how Jack the Ripper, that situation was really blamed on the Jews, those hate crimes. And it's truly a powerful, impactful book that shows students, anti-Semitism that very few of us know about. So I highly recommend this book. Next slide. The next one is my novel, The Assignment. And I'm actually in Houston right now. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to speak with 130 Jewish teens and empower them to speak up against hatred and to be proud of their Judaism. This is a novel that connects the history of the Holocaust to the anti-Semitism that we are seeing today. And it shows the ripple effect of, one small act, how it could literally end up having a global impact. And, I am profoundly humbled and grateful and honored that it was a Sydney Taylor notable book, and it is making a difference in fighting anti-Semitism and helping to stop hateful assignments across the globe. Next slide. So this is actually an adult book, but very much appropriate, for young adults too. And you may not be familiar with this book. It's called Jewish Pride, and that's what we've been talking about. This was written by Ben Freeman, and he is gay. He talks about his experience in the LGBTQ community and what that pride means and how he connected that to Jewish pride. He focuses on positivity. He examines the history of anti-Semitism and the impact of anti-Semitism. And it's really eye-opening, like Jews don't count, and how we often allow the non-Jewish world to define us as Jews. And he really, helps us to take back our Jewish identity. And so, I think we are all familiar with Jews Don't Count and other books that we have listed on our handout. So this is a new one, I hope, for you, and that you'll pick up and read. Next slide. So we talked about the fact that we do have this handout, and we spent a tremendous amount of time really wanting to give you hashtags that you can use on social media, but also use them as an opportunity to go and find other Jewish influencers, people, that are interested in Jewish books, and to find other Jewish books. And I'm going to turn this back to Hannah to end with this beautiful quote.
Which beautiful quote? Oh, this on the screen? Okay.
Yes.
You know what's scarier than anything you'll see on Halloween? The silence coming from people who refuse to speak up against anti-Semitism, from Dr. Logan Levkoff. And here are our websites, contact information. Feel free to reach out to us. But right now, I think we have some time, so we would love to take everyone's questions. And thank you, everyone, for being here. And thank you, the AJL.
thank all of you for this excellent presentation and this extremely thorough handout. So useful. So, if anybody has a question, could you please go ahead and put it into the chat? Or you can also use the hand raising reaction button. I will put the handout into the chat again for anybody who missed it. But if typing is not convenient for you and you would rather talk out loud, then use the hand raising, go to reactions and click on raise hand. Hold on a second. I'm going to get that link again for you while I'm waiting to see what questions we have. And yes, we are recording this. I see that question. We are recording this and that will be available to share because this is a public event. So hold on. Here is the link again to the handout for anybody who didn't see that. Okay, Anne is asking, how can we encourage mainstream publishers to publish more books like this? Any thoughts?
Great question. So Heidi and I were both at the Jewish Symposium at Highlights, and we spoke about like what Jewish books are needed and what the holes are in publishing. But then you come up against that very question: how do you get mainstream publishers to publish them? Because they need to have, a need. They have to fill a need, and they have to have numbers, and there has to be the marketing behind it. So I wish I had an easy answer to that, but I think if we all speak up and say that these books are needed and we have collective voices, maybe they will see, maybe sometimes bad things have to happen for good things to happen too. I don't know.
And one of the things, oh, I'm sorry, Nancy, go ahead.
Oh, just briefly, but I just think, one of the ways by supporting each other, by spreading the word, by not assuming that because a book has a Jewish topic or a character that it's only for the Jewish community. If we also, in the same way we're looking to be proud of the positive role models, we need to be proud of the books that come out as well, and do what we can to share them with a larger community. We are all in this together, and we need to be building bridges, and we can do that. There are ways of doing that, and nothing can happen necessarily in 1 hour, 1 day. But if that is our aim, if we work towards that and we work towards that together, we will make progress in that direction.
Thank you so much, Nancy, for that. I want to actually take that a little bit further, that we have been, working hard. I think, Heidi and others in our community, me included, I've been working with We Need Diverse Books to get included in these spaces and to make it known that Jewish books are diverse books and they need to be included, and we need to be included on panels that are not just, within our own community, but the broader community. And the more we are seen in those spaces, and, our books are honored and respected, and our authors have the opportunity to talk about our Jewish books and our Jewish stories within that broader population, I think that it will be embraced, and we won't be seen as a niche, like a niche area for publishing, that we are reaching a wider audience. And again, it's we need to express that non-Jewish students, we can combat anti-Semitism by making this just a part of, society. So important.
Right. That's why I share the statistics about our numbers, that we are a minority, even though people don't view us that way or think of us that way. Share that information, and that we are marginalized. like many other people.
So we actually have a hand up in the audience. So Sandy, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Thank you. What a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. But my question or my comment is that even this presentation is speaking to the choir. So how can this presentation, how can all of us help get this presentation, this recorded presentation, not only to Jewish librarians and Jewish teachers and Jewish schools, but out there to public schools? Because that's the goal, I assume, is the bigger goal, the greater goal. And I don't have any magic answer, but I mentioned that there would be this conversation to my own public librarian. I mentioned it to the director. I mentioned it to the person in charge of the children's library part of the library. And she said, this isn't our purview. She's a lovely person, Jewish person. She said, the schools have to come asking for this. And I understand what she's saying. When schools ask for a certain stack of books or listings of books, the library provides it for displays or set aside topics. But the schools need to know that they can have this or see this. I mean, I don't know the magic way to do it, but I'm saying that I think that that's the audience that needs this presentation. Not so much a Jewish audience, because this is what I said before. I think this is the speaking to the choir audience. And yes, Jewish children and Jewish families need these books, but if we want to make a change, it has to go to the general audience, which is the thousands, the hundreds of thousands, public schools. I don't know how to do that.
So
Well,
I
yeah.
see that Sarah commented that she's trying to reach out to interfaith councils, which is excellent. I'll be speaking to teachers as like a book club event. The U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum educates hundreds of teachers, thousands of teachers around the country, and many other Holocaust museums do as well. So these are not Jewish schools. But many states now require Holocaust education, and they don't have the curricula to do it. So the Holocaust Museum steps in and they recommend books and reading lists. And so I'll be speaking to them actually next week. So that's one way to do that. And like Lisa said, we need diverse books. I think also when things come up, like, when you said like requesting from the library, when we can request books from our libraries, that they purchase them. And then when things come up like Jewish Heritage Month, make sure that a month beforehand, you email your librarians and you show up with that list and you say, I would like a display of these books, because I did that this year. And I live in a very Jewish area in New Jersey. And I asked, where's the Jewish Heritage Month display? And they said, oh, one book's over there, and one book's over there, and one book's over there. But there was a library in a neighboring town where the Jewish librarian did create a list, and it was on front and center on the shared website. So there are things that we can do as individuals to make sure that these books get shared.
I did that too, Hannah. I did that in my library for the past 3 years.
Great.
And it was very successful. But I'm saying into this public schools.
Right. So that's what I'm saying about teaching, like, interfaith and so on. So go ahead, Nancy.
The other thing I was just going to jump in, and that's true. I think a lot of our books do break down barriers. For instance, we talked about Dear Mr. Dickens. It has been fully embraced by the Dickens Museum, which never had any kind of Jewish element there. And they were so thrilled to have it, because that issue of Dickens and Fagin was always that embarrassing, problematic thing that no one wanted to talk about with this otherwise wonderful writer. And they so welcomed it, and they teamed up with the Jewish Museum of London to create an educational program, which can now be obtained. Anyone can have it because it's a virtual program. And I've connected with the Dickens Project at UC Santa Cruz and Dickens fellowships and societies, and these are not Jewish organizations. And all of a sudden, they're becoming aware of this National Jewish Book Award winner, this heroine a true story of a brave Jewish woman speaking up. So sometimes these are a way of opening doors, and once a door is open, even a crack, you can walk through it. But again, nothing substitutes for the fact that, yes, we're all listening, but not everybody here is Jewish. I know people outside the Jewish community are on this as well, listening to us. I'm so grateful to the Association for Jewish Libraries for making a recording. We can share this recording as widely as we want, and the people who are going to rescue us, instead of waiting for someone to rescue us, we have to rescue ourselves. We have to just work harder in the most positive way possible to try and get the word out, to keep speaking up. I mean, as Hannah mentioned with Dear Mr. Dickens, the first time Eliza wrote to Charles Dickens, he kind of says, "Who are you?" And he just rebuffs her. And she has to decide whether she's going to sit and cry about it or whether she's going to write back. And she writes back. And we all have to be a little bit like that. Even if we are rebuffed, we just have to keep going. And eventually, the doors open to create just a little crack, we move in a little further, and we just have to help support each other and keep talking and keep trying.
You know, I totally agree. 1 second, Lisa, I just want to go to that comment. Also, we are all in many author groups, and I got so much support from non-Jewish authors sharing like my good book news this week, and it's very heartening, and they have a huge following, and so we just have to keep building those bridges. It's very meaningful.
I'm going to be speaking at the Suffolk County School Librarians Conference on November 8th. How would I get a copy of this to share with them? Is there any way I can just forward it?
A copy of this presentation?
Yes.
The recording is going to be on AJL's YouTube channel. It'll take a few days before that happens, but it will be available, so you can share that YouTube link.
Just tell them about the link. Is there any way of forwarding this to the head of the conference?
So yes, once we have that link, we will put it on Hasafran, AJL's listserv. It will be available through AJL's website. And also we'll send something out. Somebody in the chat was just asking about emailing everybody who had signed up for this event. So we can do that as well to make sure you all get that.
That would be great.
So what I wanted to add is that we're looking often at like, this is such a challenge, and it is, but we have made headway. And there are things that we need to celebrate. For example, because of AJL, through at ALA, there are books that win the Sidney Taylor and receive the honor books. It is announced and shared, and that is a big thing. And they send out the list. That's huge. And really like getting out there and advocating, it took me nearly a year to get School Library Journal to write an article about Jewish authors and books, and it's perseverance. And so, persevere, and then when it happens, share it, and, send it to your librarians. I can tell you, I am really good friends with my local librarians. None of them are Jewish. And I pick up the phone or I send an email and I say, I just want you to know this book is coming out, and would you buy it? And so that gets it into the entire Milwaukee library system. So build those personal relationships. And, when you build those relationships, build it with other authors that are in other, author groups, not just our Jewish groups. And I'm seeing it, and we have a lot to be proud of. And of course, we have to, recognize there's more work to do. But I think we also need to acknowledge that some really big strides have been made. And there have been people that have been working on this for a long time. And I'm just, so thank you. And we know, I just want to acknowledge Heidi and Susan Kusel, because those are two, individuals that have really been working on this for a long time, much longer than you know, this situation. So huge kol hakavod to them. And, you know, thank you. Please elevate. Speaking of which, you know, Heidi has a podcast and she
Wonderful.
is often a guest on other podcasts. So share that. And that's just so,
Podcast is
so
in our
important.
resources, right? The Book of Life. Lisa, it's in the resources also. the link to the
Yes,
Book
we
of Life.
have it in the resources. So
Thank you very much for mentioning that. I also want to point out something that Martha just put in the chat. This is a really great action that everybody can take if it fits into your schedule. The Association for Library Services to Children, the ALA division, ALSC, is having diversity discussions, and they're having a Jewish interest discussion specifically to ask, what do we want from them? So they're asking, let's tell them. So you can see that in the chat, Martha shared the link where you can register to take part in that discussion. So please do that if you are available at the time that they're. I was only able to tune into. They had one that was on a Friday, and we told them about that. Maybe Friday's not the best time. People are busy, so they actually scheduled a second one.
Great.
So that's still coming up, and I was able to tune in for just like a brief time because it was the middle of my workday, but I was able to go and share some thoughts. So please do that.
Yeah, also, like, you know, your publisher should be trying to get you into trade magazines. I was actually interviewed for the ALSC magazine because my husband and I wrote the Hanukkah book together, and they interviewed us. And that's a national magazine for librarians. And also, you know, if your publisher is doing their work, you're going to get trade reviews that go out to everyone. You know, so it's not just, you know, small reviews that, you know, these get national attention. So hopefully, you know, libraries across the country and around the world actually are purchasing them. I'm hopeful. So. Any other questions?
So this has been a really terrific session. I can tell that you all did so much homework because it was so smooth and well organized, and your handout is remarkably thorough and just chock full of useful things. So thank you so much. And if anybody else, you know, we don't, it's not like we have to get out of the room if it was a conference. If anybody else has questions, we can continue, but it is just about 8 o'clock. So I know some of you might have other things to do as well. So just last call for questions. Oh, and I do also want to mention the next AJL Presents event that is coming up, and that's actually going to be with Penina Schramm, so that's pretty cool, you know, the famous storyteller. And that is taking place on Wednesday, November 9th, this same time of day, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's called AJL Presents What's in a Name, a storytelling presentation / workshop. And so I'm going to put the registration link for that in the chat for anybody who might be interested. And it's also on the calendar at jewishlibraries.org. You can find it there too.
Heidi, I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second. I posted the link for those of you who are not AJL members. We'd love to have you as part of our community. The link for joining is in the chat. It's a very good organization.
To say the least.
To say the least.
And just to point out that if you'd like to save the chat, because there's a lot of useful links in it and so on, you can do that. Go ahead to the bottom of your chat. I think it's the 3 dots, isn't it? Is that right? Yes. You click on the 3 dots and then you click on Save Chat, and it will save it to your own computer. So after this Zoom call is over, you will still have that document. On my computer, it goes into the documents folder, and then there's a subfolder that Zoom created in there. It says Zoom. So that's where you'll probably find it.
You know, we are all grateful to have had this opportunity, you know, to AJL, and for all of you to taking time, because there's so many demands on your time, and to take the time to let us share these stories, these feelings from our hearts. And I have to say, I'm just so grateful. It was an excuse to hang out with Hannah and Lisa, who I just absolutely adore. And they're such fantastic resources, and then all the people that we consulted who helped us. You know, we are truly, truly thankful.
Yeah, thank you. It's mutual.
All right. Thank you all for coming. Thank you so much. This was excellent.
Good night,
Great
everyone.
presentation, you all.
Yeah.